Have you ever felt like you were born into a world that changed faster than it understood itself? That your childhood was analog, but your adulthood became digital overnight? That your values seemed to bridge two entirely different worlds, the old and the new? There's a reason for that. According to Buddhist and metaphysical traditions, souls don't arrive randomly. They choose specific timelines, with specific challenges and missions, to evolve, heal karma, and carry forward ancient wisdom into new realities. And if your birth falls between 1950 and 1975, you're part of what some spiritual teachers call the Golden Bridge generation, the generation sent to carry the flame of the past across the river of the present, to light the way for the future. In this video, we're going deep into what your soul came here to do. We'll explore the spiritual contracts that guided your birth, the karmic patterns of your lineage, and why your life, your pain, your gifts, your timing is not accidental. Stay with me until the end, because I'll reveal a powerful mindset shift and a practical method that can realign you with your higher mission, no matter what age you are now. And if any part of this feels like it's already ringing true, leave a comment below with your birth year. Let's see how many of us are waking up together. The chosen timeline. Why you were born. When you were. What if your soul picked this exact moment in history, down to the decade, for a reason? From a Buddhist perspective, incarnation is not random. Before birth, the soul assesses karmic debts, collective needs, and spiritual alignments to determine the perfect entry point. If you were born between 1950 and 1975, you arrived during a time of global transition. This wasn't just any era, it was a planetary pivot. The post-war world was rebuilding itself. Television became mainstream, civil rights awakened, technology began its quiet invasion. And yet spiritual hunger remained deep and unmet. Why does this matter? Because you were born as a bridge, a human link between the wisdom of the past and the innovation of the future. You carry ancestral memory of a world that valued connection, community, patience. But you also were young enough to adapt to the modern world, its pace, its progress, and its pain. Spiritually speaking, this is no small task. Being a bridge means feeling the pull of both sides. You might often feel torn between wanting to slow down and needing to speed up. Between cherishing what's real and being pressured to chase what's artificial, but there's power in this paradox. You weren't meant to choose sides. You were meant to integrate them. And if that's resonating, it's because this generation was encoded with a mission to remind a fast-changing world of what truly matters. You're not here to compete with younger generations. You're here to anchor them, to embody the values they're searching for but may have never seen lived out. Drop a comment if you've ever felt like a bridge between two worlds, and you never quite belonged fully to either. If you were born between 1950 and 1975, there's something else you've probably noticed. Your life hasn't been easy. It may have felt like you were carrying weight that wasn't yours. Patterns that repeated, emotional burdens passed down, cycles of scarcity, silence, or suffering that showed up again and again, even when you tried to break free. That's not your imagination. It's karmic inheritance. According to Buddhist teachings, we are born not just into families, but into karma. We inherit more than genes. We inherit emotional imprints, unresolved traumas, and energetic blueprints from those who came before us. And your generation? You were born into families recovering from war, from poverty, from repressed emotions, from unspoken trauma. You were taught to be strong, but not necessarily to be seen, to endure, but not always to express, to work, but not always to feel. This suppression of pain, of dreams, of voice, is part of the karmic package you came to heal. But healing karma isn't about blame. It's about awareness, and once you realize that part of your soul's contract was to stop the cycle, everything starts to make sense. Maybe you were the first in your family to go to therapy, or the first to say, no more, to a toxic relationship pattern. Maybe you're the one who chose a different path, quieter, slower, more conscious. That wasn't weakness. That was correction. You're not just here to live. You're here to liberate, to be the one who says, "It ends with me." And not out of anger, but out of love. Love for your ancestors who didn't have the tools. Love for the generations ahead who need your strength. And that kind of courage, that kind of inner work, it echoes across timelines. If you felt like the emotional black sheep or healer of your family, hit that like button, because you're not alone. Let's be honest, if you were born between 1950 and 1975, you've likely wrestled with loneliness more than once in your life, not just being alone. But feeling alone, like no one truly understands the depth of what you carry, or the weight of what you see. But here's the secret that few talk about. Loneliness is often a sign of spiritual maturity. In Buddhist philosophy, the path to awakening often begins with suffering, not as punishment but as a sacred invitation to go within, to detach from illusion, to remember who you truly are. Your generation holds a rare kind of loneliness. It's the loneliness of the watcher, the one who remembers a slower, more soulful world, but lives in a time where everyone's rushing, scrolling, and numbing. It's the loneliness of the seer, the person who notices what others ignore, who feels energy in a room, who knows something deeper is going on beneath the surface of every conversation. And while that sensitivity may have made you feel broken, it's actually your gift. In ancient cultures, the odd ones were the healers, the quiet ones were the wisdom keepers, the sensitive ones were oracles in disguise. So if you've struggled to find your place, if you've had long seasons of isolation or emotional solitude, it's not because you're weak. It's because you've been preparing. Solitude strengthens your spiritual antenna. It quiets the noise so your intuition can speak louder. It deepens your empathy so you can help others walk the path they're too afraid to take, alone. And the next time that familiar loneliness visits you, don't fight it. Sit with it. Ask it what it came to teach. Because inside that ache is a sacred message. Comment, "I feel this," if you've ever turned your solitude into strength, or are learning to. Have you ever wondered why your deepest spiritual insights, your most profound awakenings, only started to appear later in life? Why it took decades to truly see yourself or to even ask the questions that now guide your every thought? That too is by design. According to Buddhist and soul-based teachings, there are some souls who are not meant to awaken early, because they're meant to first walk through the fire of experience. If you were born between 1950 and 1975, you didn't grow up with mindfulness apps, coaching on emotional intelligence, or conversations about trauma healing. You were taught to survive first, to get a job, to start a family, to push through. So what happened? You lived. You made mistakes. You endured heartbreak. You learned the hard way, and in doing so, your soul gathered exactly what it needed. This generation was never meant to peak at 25. You were always meant to bloom in your 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond. Because real wisdom doesn't come from books or podcasts. It comes from living, from trying and failing, from hurting and healing. And that late awakening? It's actually perfect timing, because now you carry depth. Now your ego is quieter. Now you're not chasing external validation. You're craving something real. In many Buddhist texts, there's a term, ripening. It refers to when the fruit is finally ready to fall from the branch, not because it rushed, but because it grew in its own time. You're not behind, you're right on schedule, and your wisdom now, it's not just for you, it's for everyone around you, especially those younger than you, who are desperate for real guidance from someone who's lived what they're only just beginning to understand. In Buddhism, there's a path known as the middle way, not extreme indulgence, not extreme denial, but balance, harmony, clarity in the chaos. It's the road walked by those who've seen both sides and choose presence over polarity. If you were born between 1950 and 1975, you are the middle way. Literally. You grew up before the internet, but adapted to it. You knew life before constant stimulation, but learned to navigate a noisy world. You witnessed handwritten letters turn into emails, Real conversations replaced by emojis. And still, you carry the memory of what connection used to mean. That memory, it's not nostalgia. It's a gift, a form of living history encoded in your bones. Because your generation understands something most others don't. How to balance tradition with transformation, roots with wings, stillness with movement. And in a world becoming more divided by the day, politically, spiritually, emotionally, you were designed to be the calm between storms. To remind people that nuance still matters, that not everything is black or white, that we can disagree and still love. That silence can be sacred. You may not realize this, but people around you feel it. Your presence, your steadiness, your knowing that life doesn't always need more apps or answers, but sometimes just a cup of tea, a kind word, and a deep breath. In Buddhist culture, the elder is not dismissed. They are honored. Why? Because they carry the middle way, the space between extremes, the balance between what was and what's becoming. So if you've ever felt invisible in today's speed-obsessed world, remember this: your slowness is sacred, your wisdom is medicine, and your presence is the path. Something is happening on this planet right now, and you can feel it. It's subtle, but undeniable. More people are waking up. More souls are questioning the systems they were raised in. More hearts are turning inward, searching for meaning beyond material. And if you were born between 1950 and 1975, you didn't just come to witness this shift. You came to anchor it. Spiritual traditions, from Buddhism to indigenous teachings, speak of periods in history when humanity undergoes massive energetic transitions. These are not just social revolutions, they're soul revolutions. The veil gets thinner. Old paradigms collapse, and something new begins to emerge. But that emergence needs midwives. Not necessarily gurus or influencers, but grounded, awakened, souls who've walked through darkness, faced their own shadows, and can hold space for others to do the same. That's you. You're the quiet lighthouse in a stormy sea, the one who may not shout the truth, but lives it in everyday choices. The one whose calm presence alone shifts the energy of a room. And you may not think of yourself as spiritual in the Instagram sense. You might not own crystals or burn sage, but maybe you listen deeply. Maybe you've started questioning your thoughts. Maybe you've stopped chasing and started being. This is how it starts. This is the revolution. It doesn't always come with fireworks. Sometimes it shows up as forgiveness, as presence with your child, as silence before speaking. You are here to model a new kind of power, the power of peace, presence, and patience. Because what the world needs now isn't more noise. It needs souls like yours who remember how to listen. You might be wondering, if I really have a spiritual mission, a soul contract, why doesn't it feel clearer? Why doesn't it feel bigger? The truth: most soul contracts aren't fulfilled with fanfare. They're fulfilled quietly, consistently, in the choices no one sees. But the universe does. You don't have to be a best-selling author, a spiritual teacher, or a world-traveling guru to live your mission. If you were born between 1950 and 1975, chances are you've already been fulfilling your contract, without even realizing it. Here are a few signs. You broke a generational pattern. Whether it was abuse, silence, addiction, or self-abandonment, you said, "No more." That decision alone can shift the karma of an entire bloodline. You've become more sensitive to energy. Maybe you don't like large crowds anymore. Or maybe you feel things more deeply than before. That sensitivity isn't weakness, it's spiritual refinement. You feel pulled towards simplicity. You no longer crave excess. You crave essence. Meaningful conversation. Presence. Nature. Stillness. That's your soul shedding the weight of the material to make room for the sacred. You're attracting younger people seeking wisdom. You might notice people 10, 20, even 30 years younger coming to you for advice, comfort, or guidance. That's no coincidence. They're being drawn to your frequency. You've started seeing the past with compassion. Not because it was all okay, but because you've stopped needing it to be different in order to feel peace. That's a massive sign of spiritual evolution. Your soul contract doesn't scream. It whispers. It moves in subtle choices and sacred pauses. You were never meant to shout from the rooftops. You were meant to embody the truth so deeply that others remember it simply by being around you. Comment here if you felt like you're slowly stepping into a new version of yourself, one that feels more aligned, more conscious, and more true than ever before. Let's talk about something few acknowledge, but many feel: the quiet ache of being invisible. If you were born between 1950 and 1975, you might have noticed that the world has stopped seeing you the way it used to. Media, trends, technology, even job markets seem obsessed with the new, the fast, the young, and somehow in the midst of this noisy evolution you disappeared. But the truth is, this isn't just cultural, it's energetic. You see, your generation grew up being taught to suppress emotion, to tough it out, to survive without complaint. You were the foundation builders, the caretakers, the sacrificers. And now, as the world spins faster and louder, many of you find yourselves wondering, where do I fit in? Who am I, now that I'm not needed in the same way? This disconnection isn't your fault. It's a byproduct of a world in transition, and it's affecting millions of people just like you. But here's what's spiritual. Wisdom tells us, when a soul becomes unseen by the world, it's often being called inward, called back home, to reconnect with its true self, beyond roles, titles, and expectations. Because when no one is looking at you, you finally get to look at yourself, not as someone's parent, not as a professional, not as a provider, but as a soul, a being, a consciousness. And that space, the one that feels empty, it's actually sacred. It's the doorway to your most authentic self, if you're willing to walk through it. You may feel unseen by the world, but you are deeply seen by the universe, and it's often the souls who are quietest, who carry the most powerful light. There's a lie that's been whispered to many in your generation. It's too late to change, too late to dream, too late to grow, to heal, to matter. But that voice, it doesn't belong to your soul. It belongs to fear, to programming, to a culture that celebrates youth and speed, while forgetting the sacred power of maturity and depth. Buddhist teachings remind us that awakening can happen in a single breath, in a moment of stillness, in a soft surrender. And it doesn't matter if you're 25 or 75, because truth doesn't care about age. Presence is ageless. If you were born between 1950 and 1975, your journey is not winding down. It's turning inward. You've built a life, a career, a family, a story. But now is the time to build something even more sacred: your alignment, your inner radiance, your soul's voice. So what does reclaiming your inner light actually look like? It's not about starting over. It's about coming home. Home to the parts of you that got left behind while you were busy surviving. Home to the child inside you who still believes. Home to the creative spark, the intuitive voice, the dreams you shelved to be practical. It's about forgiving the time you lost and honoring the time you still have. Because the truth is, your later years are meant to be your most conscious. The distractions are falling away. The need to impress is dissolving, and what's left is you. Still powerful, still luminous, still able to shift everything around you just by fully being yourself. If something in you knows this next chapter could be your most meaningful, so now that you've remembered who you really are, how do you begin to live it? How do you align with your soul contract in daily life, especially if you feel like you're just starting over? The answer is simpler than you think. You don't need to move to a mountain or meditate for hours. You just need to start showing up moment by moment as the version of you that remembers why you came here. Here are some gentle, powerful practices to begin that alignment today. Begin every morning with inner connection. Before you check your phone or enter the world, sit in silence for 5 minutes. Ask yourself, who do I want to be today? Not what you want to achieve, but how you want to feel, love, and respond. This tiny shift plants the seed for a conscious day. Speak to your younger self. Take 10 minutes once a week to journal or reflect on your past, not with regret, but with compassion. Write to your 20-year-old self. Tell them what you know now. This process builds self-forgiveness and integrates your journey. Practice the power of presence, whatever you're doing. Washing dishes, walking, listening. Do it fully. Presence heals karmic restlessness. It rewires the brain, calms the nervous system, and reconnects you with the now, where all transformation begins. 4. Share your stories. You don't have to become a public speaker, but find someone, a grandchild, a friend, a community, and share what you've lived. Your voice carries encoded wisdom, and sometimes your casual story is someone else's spiritual awakening. 5. Let go of should and embrace now. At this stage in life, let go of who you thought you should be. There is no final version to become, only this unfolding, expanding truth of who you already are. What matters now is how you feel in your soul, not your resume. Surround yourself with conscious energy. Let go of environments, news, and people that dim your light. This isn't selfish, it's sacred maintenance. Your energy is your contribution. Guard it. Repeat this daily mantra. I am not behind. I am exactly where my soul chose to be. Let it sink in. Let it become your foundation. Because the timeline you're on is divine. This isn't about doing more. It's about being more of who you already are. Let these practices guide you back, not to the person you used to be, but to the soul you've always been becoming. If any of these resonate, try one today, and let us know in the comments. Which one are you starting with? If you were born between 1950 and 1975, you're not just part of a generation, you're part of a spiritual lineage, a soul group, sent to hold the line between wisdom and chaos, between silence and noise, between the old world and what's coming next. Maybe life hasn't always made sense. Maybe you felt lost, behind, or even forgotten. But here's what's true. The universe never forgot you. It's been waiting for you to remember, to awaken, to rise, not in noise, but in presence. Because everything you've lived, every scar you carry, every chapter that broke your heart, it was all preparation. Preparation for the chapter you're in now. The chapter where you stop trying to fit in and start standing tall in your truth. And here's the best part. It's not too late. Not for purpose, not for peace, not for joy. You still have time to become more of who you were always meant to be. Not by chasing anything outside of you, but by turning inward, by embodying the light you've carried quietly for decades. So I'll leave you with this. If something in your heart stirred during this video, that wasn't an accident. It was your soul answering a call. And maybe that's the reason you're still here, still watching, still feeling, still becoming. Leave a comment below and tell us, what part of this message spoke to you most? Because someone else is reading the comments right now, searching for someone who feels the same way. And if this video reminded you of your own beauty, your own strength, or your soul's quiet fire, hit the like button, share this with someone who needs it, and make sure to subscribe for more videos like this one. This is your time now. Not to rush, but to remember. Not to prove, but to be. Not to dim, but to shine. You were never meant to be ordinary. You were born to become exactly who you are right now. And the world is finally ready for you.